Speed of change. You know, we know the world is moving faster than we've ever seen it before, and I love visuals. You're going to see a lot of graphics and visuals that hopefully give you the mental picture to get a story across. But over a 10-year period, we actually were able to achieve something or see something that we've never seen before in the last 150 years. We elected 2 popes within a 10-year window. Now, why am I saying that? Because if you look at St. Peter's Square, this is St. Peter's Square in 2005 for the inauguration of Pope Benedict. And for those of us that can remember, way down here, this is called a flip phone. We used to actually have those down here. But you can see St. Peter's Square, 2005, 10 years later, Pope Francis is elected, and it's just a short 10 years, and here is the square. And there's a couple of things I want you to take away from this. One, how rapidly our behavior in the world changes in a decade. But here's the other thing. You're going to hear it, and and my apologies to everybody who writes about it. We see these predictions for 2020, what's going to happen in 2025. If you are writing a business plan that's more than 18 months out, you're wasting your time. We don't know what's going to happen. And anyone who tells you they are or they do, they're full of it because nobody knows. And here's my greatest point. In 2005, if you go back to that square, the iPad wasn't even released until 2009. How would we have known this is the behavior when we hadn't even seen the product? We didn't even have the technology. But yet somebody in 05 is going to tell you what the world's going to look like in 2015. It just doesn't make any sense. That's how fast the world's moving. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Because if you look at the S&P 500, 75% of the companies will not be, that are on the S&P 500 will not be on the S&P 500 in 5 years. 75% of them. And if you go back to 1920, 67 years was the average length of time that a company was on the S&P 500. In 2010, it's 15 years. What does that tell you? A lot of disruption behind you, and a lot of competition. I'm a big fan of John Chambers. John Chambers always talks about something that your need to change and the speed of change is what's going to dictate whether you're successful or not. And here's his point. He talked about you used to have 3 years. You used to have 3 years to miss a trend. You used to have 3 years to miss a competitor. You now have 1. You have 1 year to miss that trend or miss that competitor, or you're not going to be relevant. It doesn't mean you're not in business. You're just not going to be relevant anymore, like 75% of the S&P 500, because they don't see the competition that's coming up behind them. And here's another point he makes, and it's really from a mindset standpoint. You need to understand that we have to change and change fast enough, and the research shows something. 40% of you in this room, and it doesn't matter what room I'm speaking to, the research says 40% of you in this room will not be relevant in any significant way in the next 5 years because you can't change fast enough. That's what the research tells us. It doesn't mean you're not in business. It doesn't mean you're not working. You're just not relevant to change in the conversation anymore because you can't change fast enough. And the one thing John talks about, it's interesting. It's not about you got the latest technology. It is literally being able to change structure, changing organization, changing mindset, changing the way we look at the world. And here's the biggest thing. The bigger you are, the harder it is to change, and to change quickly. That's why big companies are failing today, because they can't move very quickly. And John likes to say, you need to start acting like a startup. You know what a startup does? They fail often, but they move quickly, because that's how they continue to grow.